invite Dr. Saumya Panda. It's my honor. He's going to speak on the practical innovations in editorial workflows from submission to publication. And may I invite moderators Dr. Sarman Singh and Dr. M. Ramam.
Panda served as editor-in-chief of the IJDVL, the Indian Journal of Dermatology, Venereology and Leprology, which is a leading biomedical journal. He did it for 6 years, including through the COVID time. And he was, I think one of the features that I found very interesting about his stewardship was that he was uncompromising in his belief that authors should not need to pay at any stage and that there should be no payment wall for readers. I know personally that there were some issues, particularly in negotiating with some publishers that he faced because of this, but he never moved on that principle. I think it's also fair to say that the IJDVL, which is now published by Scientific Scholar, that many elements in the manuscript platform were shaped or influenced by the demands that Saumya Panda made based on the editorial workflow that he was following in his journal. And it is that he will speak to us about this morning, and it is my pleasure to welcome him to go ahead with his presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Ramam, for that hugely expansive introduction. I thank Scientific Scholar for calling me here to give this presentation on practical innovations in editorial workflow. Now, why do we need to innovate? I think those of us who have been following the series of lectures from the morning, this needs hardly, and those who are in this editing business and in the publishing, this hardly requires any kind of an introduction. The major disrupting forces, as are pretty evident, are the rise of the preprints, particularly from the COVID era, where a large amount of data needed to be published in a record time, for which the traditional, conventional publishing module was rendered inefficient. Then the rise of the artificial intelligence, which has posed innumerable challenges to traditional publishing. This has also been discussed. And both of these impinging on the peer review system as we know it, and the unsustainability of the peer review system basically influencing in ways which was not thinkable, and sort of stimulating the preprints, the rise of the preprints and the rise of artificial intelligence. So, why do we say that the peer review system as we know it is unsustainable? Now, a 2016 study suggested that 20% of scientists did between 69 and 94% of the reviewing in the previous year. Now, this follows exactly the Pareto principle, which basically means that 80% of outcome in any system is due to 20% of the inputs of the source, right? So, I mean, as far as the Pareto principle is concerned, this is exactly what is expected, and that is what is happening. And this is not going to change. Very substantial. And there is a humongous contribution of man hours. The basic problem in a sentence was identified by Stephen Penfield, that the peer review pool is much smaller than the author pool. And that's exactly which is causing all these innumerable, or unprecedented crisis that we might say. And just to give one example of this crisis. Just take a look at this one. I apologize because I had to take in one example in which I feature personally, but I found that to be unavoidable. So when we did a simple Gemini search of network meta-analysis with choice models. Now, network meta-analysis is one of my areas of interest in which I am currently working on. And this is what I mean to say, that particularly in niche areas where there is a gross lack of reviewership or reviewers, this is what is happening. And then when we sort of deep searched it and asked Gemini to produce a review, Gemini gave this full article, probabilistic choice models as an alternative to conventional ranking in network meta-analysis. And they gave 6 seminal papers, of which the first 2 were published in preprints, ARXIV. Of the 2, the second one, of which I am also a co-author, is still not published. It is in an advanced stage of publication in a prominent Nature-affiliated journal, but it is still not published. And as you can imagine, this has already been cited. And there are documentations or articles or data published in ARXIV, BioRxiv or MedRxiv, which have literally thousands of citations and which have not been published in the journals at all. So this is the contour of the crisis that we are speaking about. So how do we find a new equilibrium in scholarly publishing? My contention is that we have to use AI as an augmentative tool, not as a disrupting force. It will have its disruptive actions, no doubt, but we have to make use of it as an augmentative force, where it balances human intellect with scalable efficiency. Now, Dr. Ramam introduced our role in the, curating the editorial and review processes in IJDVL. This was what the IJDVL review process was when I laid down my tenure. And this was the full editorial process. Now, of which the initial, the triage editing, unfortunately, had to be abandoned later on because of it was, utilizing a great deal of time. Now, what I mean to say, otherwise it is more or less still intact. The current editor-in-chief of IJDVL is also in the audience. I mean, she can correct me over here, but as far as I can understand, this is more or less intact, other than the triage editing thing is not there. My point is that with such a kind of intricate workflow, and definitely because since the triage editing was locked off, there has been improvement in the editorial processing. But the editorial processing cannot be, I repeat, reduced so much so that we can be a viable alternative to preprint system. It just cannot be. So we have reached an inflection point. So where do we think that the AI would be an enabler? In the automated checks immediately after submission, in the language editing part of it, and what are the cons? The cons will always be the integrity risks, the paper mills that have been pointed out by more than one speaker, the misconduct that it gives rise to, and the peculiar language, the tortured phrases, which all of us have been accustomed to, right? Now, interestingly, though this is, must be known to many in the audience, but I would like to flesh out the emerging AI ecosystem within the publication world. There are publishing initiatives, most prominently by organizations like Wiley or Springer Nature, where they have collaborative bodies like the STM Future Lab. There are AI companies like Authorpilot or Penelope AI, who provide for comprehensive manuscript pre-submission checks. There are tools for advanced research discovery and literature synthesis. Systems like PaperPal and Yomu, which have sophisticated academic writing assistants. And there are even specialized integrity tools like Proofig, which can detect image manipulation, and Dimensions Author Check, which can flag authorship risks. What I propose here is an AI copilot system. Mind you, this copilot is not the same as the copilot within inverted commas, which we are accustomed with. We are calling it a copilot as a shorthand term, so don't be mistaken between the two. And this should be built, or this can be built on a modular architecture with a suite of specialized AI services targeting distinct stages of the peer review workflow, including the initial editorial triage, intelligent reviewer discovery, deep manuscript integrity analysis, and synthesis of reviewer feedback. So, we define it as a supplementary tool where it will empower the human reviewers to focus on judgment, novelty, and significance. The human centricity of this approach is not just lip service or an ethical concession, but a strategic imperative for successful implementation. What will be the ethical and policy framework of such an AI-assisted system or module? It has to follow the ethical and policy parameters which have arisen from consensus from COPE and the major publishers. The two pillars of principles will be transparency and accountability. For concerns regarding confidentiality, no public AI tools may be used for manuscript processing, and the human reviewers must remain fully responsible for taking any final call at every stage. So these are the policy parameters which are followed by COPE and the major publishers. We all know that as an author and as a reviewer in reviewing, we cannot basically utilize AI, though Wiley does not completely categorically specify such prohibition. So what are the operational guardrails for utilizing AI in manuscript processing? What are the permissible uses for augmentation? Language and readability improvement, in literature search, and in technical and integrity checks. And which are the no-go areas? Any subjective assessment or evaluative content generation, no decision making, and obviously the AI cannot take part in any data or image generation. There is a subtle nuance here which I would like to call your attention to. The existing policies, while clear on prohibiting AI from making final assessments, are often less specific about using AI to generate evidence for human assessment. Now, this distinction creates the operational space for the AI copilot. For instance, an AI-generated report that states, quote unquote, the p-value reported on page 5 is inconsistent with the data presented in table 3 is not a subjective judgment of the paper's quality, but rather a factual and verifiable observation. Now, for discovering this, the human reviewer has to have the expertise and has to have the time and has to have considerable, but to the AI, which is properly trained and properly prompted, it can make this call in a jiffy. That is what I mean by an AI augmented reviewing or editorial system. The copilot must be meticulously designed to produce only these types of evidence-based outputs. The user interface and all reports must frame this information as data for consideration or potential issues for review, ensuring that the human expert remain the sole arbiter of the significance and implication of the AI's findings. So, as I told before, there would be 4 pillars of this modular architecture, and the focus must be on explainability at every stage. It cannot be a black box or opaque AI system where the AI is not constrained to, explain why it tells what it tells. It has to tell at every step. It has to explain why it tells what it tells, and transparency. So these are the underlying AI technologies which can assist in scope analysis, reviewer recommendation, claim verification, COMSORT or PRISMA or stroke check, image manipulation detection, and review summarization. We already have the underlying AI technology based mostly on natural language processing and inference. So the editorial triage, the technical check, the scope analysis, whether it fits into the journal scope, it can be analyzed using natural language processing, and so is the journal guidance compliance, initial integrity screening including plagiarism, authorship checks, disclosures based on the ORCID IDs and so on can all be checked, and this can hugely reduce the editorial triage time. So this is a graphic by which this can be done. That the reviewer discovery, now the semantic search, this has very much redefined the whole process compared to a keyword-based system. And I know because I also happen to have edited and a reviewer for the Frontier group of journals where they do a semantic search known as IRA, but still I get requests to guest edit on subjects like, say, gynecology and obstetrics, in which I am no specialist. So this is not the be-all and end-all, and that's why I say that it has to be a human-in-the-loop system. The humans must take the final call, and if you let the AI do, in spite of all the technological advancements, it will cause a mess up. So similarly, conflict of interest detection, and it can be done by the AI according to our current technological advancement, and there has to be an interactive dashboard for editors where the editors can always communicate. There must be bilateral communication. So this is how we can do it. The integrity analysis, the claim verification can be done with natural language inference, and the LLMs can do the consort, prisma, or stroke compliance checks at 80 to 90% accuracy. There are already studies which have proved it. There can be to test cross-modal consistency with text, data, and image. For example, text to data verification, like this is very important, like numerical values and claims made in the text. For example, an increase in 50% and the corresponding data present in table and figures, all of which require a very shrewd eye on behalf of the even trained human editors and reviewers, can be done by the AI, a properly trained and prompted AI, in a jiffy. And image integrity analysis and data and statistical consistency, including programs that apply principles like Benford's law to screen for anomalies in the data distribution that might intricate fabrication. That can be done. There are already programs. So this is, in a nutshell, the contour of the AI-assisted content evaluation. Finally, the stage 4 synthesis and decision. The mining of reviews using a topology based on established datasets like Ampere. The propositions can be categorized into types such as evaluation, request, fact, reference, and quote, multi-document summarization for meta review, and for any AI-generated output, be it a flagged inconsistency, a reviewer suggestion, or a summarized point of conflict, the system must provide a transparent, auditable trail back to the source evidence. The generation of a rationally, the use of SHAP values to show world-level contributions, and the extractions of specific argumentative propositions are all manifestations of this principle. So a seamless integration with the editorial management system, and API-first design, and user interface and user experience for transparency and trust. And finally, training, phased rollouts, and continuous feedback system must be part of the human-in-the-loop implementation strategy. An API-first development approach is essential because this will enable an EMS to make calls to the copilot to trigger specific analysis. For example, run integrity check on manuscript so-and-so and receive the results as structured data to display within the native EMS interface. It can be a multi-layered integration strategy. Now let me tell that the EMS platforms like ScholarOne provide developer APIs and notification services that are designed to facilitate precisely this type of third-party integration, and this can be not easily, but is eminently doable in our publication or editorial manuscript management systems too. Designing for trust, UI UX principles for transparent and interpretable AIs. The explainability, as I said, it should not be any black box or opaque AI system. So every piece of information generated by the AI must be transparent and auditable. Any flagged inconsistency, for example, must not only state the issue, but also provide a direct clickable link to the specific sentences, numbers, or images in the manuscripts that triggered the flag. Confidence scoring, where technically feasible AI outputs should be presented with confidence scores or probability indicators. The interface must be user-guided for exploration, not just consumption. The reviewer discovery dashboard, for instance, should allow editors to filter results, adjust weighting parameters for different criteria, for example, semantic relevance versus reviewer speed, and immediately see how their choices impact the recommendations. And embedded user education. The UI will incorporate contextual help features such as tooltips, hotspots, and brief interactive walkthrough guides. The academic community, of course, presents unique barriers to technological adoption, including a lack of technical training, institutional resistance to change, and legitimate ethical concerns. So the initial deployment of any AI-assisted module should be targeted and strategic, starting with a small number of receptive journals and committed editorial teams who can act as champions for the system. And there must be a continuous feedback loop. The system must be designed for continuous improvement based on user feedback. Of course, there will always be risks. Algorithmic bias, hallucinations, misuse or breaches, but there are ways to mitigate all these risks, like fairness audits, source-grounded outputs, and strong cybersecurity protocols. So this is, in short, in a nutshell, the risks and the ways to mitigate. So what would be the long-term vision for such a system? Predictive analysis for bottlenecks. Over time, the copilot will be able to generate an unprecedented structured data sets about the peer review process itself. A version of the triage and integrated analysis modules could be offered to authors as a pre-submission service. There should be enhanced reproducibility checks. Future versions could move beyond checking reporting guidelines for performing more substantive reproducibility analysis. And finally, we could have a seamless human-AI synergy for future publishing. So to conclude, any such AI-assisted system should augment, not replace human reviewers. It would ensure rigor, efficiency, and integrity. Human in the loop will ensure accountability. And finally, it would go a long way in enhancing trust in scholarly publishing ecosystem. If not the only way, it is certainly a great alternative route to consider in the current existential crossroads of scholarly publishing. I acknowledge the role of Dr. Dipayan Sengupta, my young compatriot, who is a hugely talented dermatologist colleague who has helped flesh out the contours of the AI Copilot system that I have currently just now envisaged. Thank you all for your patience.
Thank you, Dr. Panda. Wonderful talk, lot of information to digest, and very importantly, co-pilot, and I think scientific scholars should think seriously. But before I open the session for the questions, I think the bottom line, all editors, I am also section editor for PLOS NTD, which is handled by editorial manager. So everybody knows, if you see from the point of view of as a teacher, a professor, or the author, that decision has to be, you highlighted that the decision has to be as quick as possible. But you again highlighted that everybody knows it also, that finding reviewer is a real difficult. Why I highlighted that I am also section editor of PLOS and PLOS NTD. So this is not for Indian journals, this problem. This is across. So, and sometimes for PLOS NTD, I find that 30 reviewers, 40 reviewers, and none agrees sometimes. Sometimes even first can agree. So that is really very nice. And I think you very nicely, your topic was workflow. Finding reviewer is very important. And again, sometimes some of the reviewers, as Dr. Rajiv was asked that how many reviewers, and then his answer was very right, that sometimes some reviewers they will just write, very good study, accept. Nothing. And some will write, useless study, reject. I think when these reviews and these things, they go for indexing, when Madam was asking, that all these, they are evaluated by the indexing agencies. So I think you have to act. Bottom line is that the editor has to act on these issues. There is also, as I said, from Indian experience and from the editorial manager experience, there is a huge Western bias. We know it. So sometimes if your journal name obviously is Indian somewhere, and then you send for review outside, they will not accept. Even if they accept to review sometimes, then obviously the comments will be sometimes, what will be. On the other hand, when sometimes the journals from the, sometimes if you are reviewer from, say for example, Lancet or NEJM, you give very honest opinion, but your opinion as a reviewer when you talk, not as an editor. These editors, they will not consider your viewpoint so strongly. So that is also there. So editor bias, reviewer bias, all these are there. But I think pertaining to your talk, I think workflow he has very nicely explained, and I think for that the scientific scholars should think seriously about the co-pilot. I am not very expert in the AI, even though everybody knows that AI is the topic these days everywhere in the medicine or the editorial procedures. This is really the future. So I think with these comments, I think we can take maybe one question. Very significant, yeah.
I think there are many questions online for Dr. Panda. Thank you for a wonderful. So one of them says that if the AI acting as the reviewer gets the scientific feedback, improve the manuscript, and submit to a journal, is this ethically correct?
No, as I said, that the AI cannot give any recommendations or AI cannot make any judgment call. That has to be, AI can only point out any factual discrepancy. For making any recommendation, positive or negative, it has to be the human editor or human reviewer. That is something we need to be absolutely spot on. And regarding Dr. Singh's comments, I will totally agree with them. And in fact, that is why I think we have to look towards a system of an AI-assisted editorial manuscript management system. I will again call attention to my own experience. The example that I gave in the very beginning, one article which has been in the preprint since last year has still not been, we have not been able to publish. For getting 2 reviewers, because it's a very niche area. For getting the first reviewer, it needed to go to 30 reviewers, because it's in a journal where we can track how many reviewers it has gone to. And for getting 2 reviews, it took us 40 reviewers, 42 in fact. So that is the problem. And that is where I think AI can come to our rescue.
Sir,
Yeah.
Sir, one question.
Hi, please, yeah.
Sir, reputed journals like Lancet or BMJ and all, in New England Medical Journal, how many of them have got are they using any kind of AI tools?
As I said, as far as I can understand, the Scholar one, this has got a beta tool that is only for training. As far as I know, there is no publication system or manuscript management system that is fully utilized. It is still on a training basis. And interested editors might use it if somebody is interested. But I am not aware of any journal or any manuscript management system which have introduced them already or are already using it extensively.
So can we conclude, like
I think
Of
it
course.
is a big call. What your question is, or rather suggestions, it is a big call. I think all editors, they should take call, because whether it is a nature group or the Elsevier, nobody openly says that we are okay with the AI.
Absolutely.
So that is there. I think it is a big call. Dr. Panda, I agree. Dr. Rajiv also said that I think 2 editors they are saying, but I think all editors and the publisher also, we should take call, because internationally so far, because there is no limit. Once you allow AI, there is no limit. That is the bottom line. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.